Hey everyone, Cool Kid here, and welcome back to Accolade Acquisitions, a supplementary series that I'm doing to show how to get each Accolade glyph for the H-09 Apex tank. Our second episode is going to cover Mag, who is also in a pretty interesting situation with this fight. Mag has a lot of tools that are actually super helpful against this boss, primarily when it comes to managing the minions, so she's in pretty good standing overall. The main struggle, honestly, is just trying to make sure that you don't get killed by some bullshit, but we've got ways to work around that. So, when it comes to the build for Mag herself, there's a few things that I want to kind of go over here. So, the first one is Fracturing Crush. Fracturing Crush is really good in the first phase for basically instantly removing the armor of enemies in a very large radius. So, I quite like Fracturing Crush for that. And then you might notice I have on Fleeting and Boreal's Hatred for max efficiency. And my reasoning for that is pretty simple. I'm going to spam Polarize a lot, especially in the second phase. Weirdly enough, despite the animation, Polarize is actually a one-handed action, which means that you can still do things like shoot and reload during it. So, in the second phase, I can just spam the shit out of it, and I should be pretty difficult to kill. So I want to make sure that I have a lot of efficiency to enable that. Same with like why Primed Flow is here. And then Transient Fortitude gives me more shields from my 3. Augur Reach also helps in terms of increasing the range, primarily of Magnetize and Crush. And Adaptation is really good for a lot of the machine gun, the pyrotechnics rockets, stuff that can really catch you off guard, because it deals a surprising amount of damage, but it's all one damage type. The damage reduction against that is super helpful. And then Continuity, just to offset the duration loss. Same with Molt Efficiency. Nullifier is also here, just so that I don't get screwed over by my natural shield regen being blocked if I take a magnetic proc. This fight, especially in the first phase, it's super hard to not get nullified, so that's why I've got this here. When it comes to like unique tools that Mag has that are really helpful, honestly, you could subsume Pull Off if you want. I just don't really want to bother with it because my duration's pretty bad. But Magnetize can be used on Eximus units in the first phase to make them much easier to kill. I mean, same within the second phase, honestly, but it also has the advantage of being able to be used on miasmites, and it will group them all up under Mag, which both makes her safe and lets her kill them very fast. Another good thing I should mention real quick about Magnetize, I'm using the strategy with Latron, but regardless of if you use the Latron and Magistar strategy or the Burson and Lex strategy, each of those has a weapon that's really good with Mag's bubbles. Latron's Incarnin form shots deal insane amounts of damage if they're caught in a magnetized bubble, and Lex's energy waves are quite good too. So if you need to get rid of an Eximus unit, or something like that, you can just start dumping shots from the Latron Incarnate into it, and they'll die pretty fast. And then, like I said, Polarize is something I'm just going to spam the shit out of in order to save myself if my shield breaks. And then Crush has the advantage not just of removing armor with Fracturing Crush, but there's also the benefit that Fracturing Crush stops enemies from moving, so this stops miasmites from closing the distance on you, this stops obsolites from reaching the tank when they're trying to rush to it during Benefit Gig. This makes Venomous Eximus units in the second phase, if their Overguard's been broken, it'll stop them from advancing on you because they are a colossal threat. So there's a lot of benefits to these 3 abilities. And then, in terms of my shard setup, I have 2 cast speed and 3 shield capacity. The shield capacity is really not at all necessary, but the cast speed's really helpful for the 3. Our Latron is the same as the Excalibur episode. We've got crit chance and crit damage. I think the only change is I swapped this out for critical delay, and you'll see why in a second. We've got a lot of base damage, because it's really the best way to go, I think, with this boss fight, and just these boss fights in general, is crit and base damage, because the status effects aren't super helpful outside of the fragmented one, and we'll get to that in a separate series. Corrosive, because it matches the damage type weakness of the boss. If you want to forma your Latron more, you can also use the 90-90 mods. 90-90, what am I saying? 90% elemental mods, it'd be 90 from both of them, if you want more damage, but I don't want to forma this shit again. And then I have on Galvanized Chamber and Galvanized Scope. Galvanized Scope rocks on weak point hits in the first phase, so it's really good for that. Galvanized Chamber, more multi-shot, you charge your Incarnate faster. It's just a solid option all around. It also synergizes with Double Tap. Double Tap's damage bonus is a little finicky with the Incarnate form, because ricochets count as a miss, and that is a little annoying. But if you didn't know this already, Double Tap is multiplicative after mods, or it's multiplicative with base damage mods, I guess I should say. So it's really strong. Even if the Incarnate's a little finicky with it, it's a really good mod to have. It makes you deal a lot of extra damage. And then in terms of perks, I have Riddled Target, Extended Volley, and Flinching Spikes. You could swap this for Marksman's Hand as well. I normally run that, but for the tank, I find it to be nice to have the magazine capacity in case I miss. Cycron here is my weapon for dealing with Eximus units, so I built it to be very self-sustaining. We've got, the main thing, obviously, is we've got like our viral, heat, magnetic, all that jazz, and that's mostly for priming the tank is why I have viral here. But Cascadia Flare gives us a source of base damage independent from kills, which is super valuable, especially in the first phase when everything is an Eximus unit and takes a shit ton of damage. And then everything else is, you know, like crit, that's all kind of standard. The main thing really is viral to prime the boss, and then Cascadia Flare as like an independent of killing source of base damage. Lastly, we've got our Sancti Magistar, which is our phase 2 weapon. We've got a setup for crit damage, crit chance, and slam damage, as well as gas, because that matches the weakness of the boss in the second phase. Galvanized Reflex, because it's a heavy attack setup, and this will give us a shit ton of additional damage. And then Melee Exposure I have on, just because it's more damage. You can drop this for Kareen if you want. Won't help with the boss necessarily, but it can help with the Miasmites. Because we're going to be spamming Polarize a lot, this buff will remain active pretty much constantly, which is pretty helpful. And then, in terms of perks, we have Edge of Justice, Seismic Slam, and Critical Parallel. I guess if you want, you could take something else in these spots. This is just what I found to be the most helpful. So, our companion here has some useful tricks up its sleeve for this fight. The first one is Negate. This is just helpful in terms of preventing, like, Toxin Eximus units from killing you and whatnot. So I like having that available. We also have Tenacious Bond to boost my critical damage, which is always nice. This is also why we're using, I think I have on Prime Laser Rifle. Yeah, because it is able to pass the crit chance threshold. And then Manifold Bond to reduce cooldowns if I'm killing enemies with 3 or more status effects. Cycron is great for this if there's a bunch of ads grouped up, because it's got 3 elements on it. Reinforced Bond boosts my fire rate, which is super good specifically for my Latron in the first phase especially. And then Regen to make my Sentinel come back faster. And Guardian is like a nice safety net to have if your shields break and you don't react to it quickly enough. So, that's the basics of this setup. I know it can be a little complicated, but that should be everything, and you'll see more of what I was talking about in the mission itself. So, that's all. I'll see you in the boss fight. I really let my Deadhead stacks decay there. It's probably fine. Also, just as kind of like a secondary thing, the footage in these, like, Accolade acquisitions should look a lot better, because my dumbass realized after I was done filming the Apex tank video that YouTube's compression really does not like the volumetric fog that exists in Holvania, especially during winter. So ideally the visuals of this should be a lot more clear, both from like a compression standpoint, as well as just the like general readability standpoint, I guess. Ooh, I just got point blank. Guardian actually kind of came in clutch there. It was able to get my shields back to keep me safe while I was on the floor. All right, just gonna dodge that blitz. Oh, I didn't pick it up. Ooh, that's so annoying. Okay, fuck it, we're getting nullified. Fuck you. All right. Like I said in the video, speed is just the name of the game. Like I said, I wish I could really like give better commentary on what exactly I'm doing in the first phase, but it's kind of hard to, because it's just like, yeah, my priority is just break all the weak points, make sure I'm on like the short side for a Furbon Flood until it happens, and then pop the balloon and shoot the thing, and just repeat that as fast as possible. Truth be told, I think that the first phase is harder than the second if you let things stack up, but if you're speedrunning that shit, the second phase is easily harder, because it's harder to brute force in comparison, if that makes sense. I also just want to say that I do like using Latron as kind of like a... Like, before I'm able to build up all of my stacks of Galvanized Reflex and stuff, it is nice to, like, just rely on Latron. It's a pretty chill weapon with its AoE form for this. I'm able to engage the boss at a very safe distance, so I don't have to put myself at risk of, like, getting knocked over or something, because I'm a huge dumbass. And I like to dive right on top of the boss when it's in the middle of, yeah, mosh pit, like this. Now, if I was using Prime Sure-Footed or something, then that wouldn't be a problem, but I will not succumb to the Nightmare Frame virus. Okay. This should break in a second. Because after this, ideally, he should get access to crowd... Did he not take damage from that? Am I tweaking? I just need him to get access to crowd surf. Once he gets access to crowd surf and I can start using, like, building up galvanized reflex stacks, that'll be great. There we go, there we go. This is what I was talking about with Magnetize, by the way. I say as I take a hard landing and nearly die. Okay, well, I guess that's not what I was talking about, because I completely fumbled that. Holy shit. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, we're just gonna go in. That's fine. That's fine. So yeah, with a Fracturing Crush, like I said, you can kind of pop it, and then any Obsolites that you catch are gonna get stuck, which is really useful for just, like, making sure that they're not a problem. And then, of course, there's the 5 billion Eximus units you have to deal with. I'm not currently in my Incarnate form, which gives me base damage increase, I believe it is, so let me... Ooh, I'm getting staggered. I'm not entirely sure what sequence of inputs I had to pull off to achieve whatever just happened there, to be honest. It's a little tough to say. Anyhow, we've got more miasmites. Like I said, you can... Really, you don't even have to magnetize a miasmite. You can just magnetize something, and it works quite well. And then I think I mentioned this earlier, but like if you have a magnetized bubble, say like, hold on, where's that Venomous Eximus? Let me mark this guy with magnetized. Just dump into him and he'll die really quick. The Electron is really, really good with Mag's bubble. Like I said, so is Lex. Honestly, Burst On is too, even if it doesn't have like a projectile that gets caught and, you know, flies around or whatever. This is really annoying. I think I should be invincible in my frame while I do this, but I just have to deal with the fucking rockets from Pyrotechnics. You know, I will say, I try to... Obviously, these things will naturally contain my opinion, but I try to not, like, take the route of, you know, being salty with these things, right? I generally think that if you're struggling with these bosses, really most things in video games... Oh, he's just gonna do it again. Okay, well, I guess I reset the clock, but that's still annoying. But I feel like the approach should be to try and learn, right? As opposed to just complaining. But I'm not gonna lie, the Pyrotechnics rockets are just fucking unfair, dude. I hate them. The fact that, like, especially, like, later on in the fight, when the boss just starts spawning them basically constantly, it's like, oh, so, what you're telling me is I'm constantly getting barraged by these high-damage rockets, and there's basically nothing I can do about it because they're borderline invisible and so fast that running from them is extremely unreliable. Awesome. Like I say, I try to not be, like, salty about these things. I very much think that, like, generally speaking, if you're having an issue, it's best to approach it from the mentality of, like, what can I do to improve? But man, fuck Pyrotechnics. I do not like that attack at all. He's gonna go for Mucus Spires again. I might be able to kill him fast. Okay, I guess he tried to spawn it and he didn't. I'm not sure if my slam broke it or what happened there, but that's interesting. Okay. I need to just get through this as fast as I can before Pyrotechnics starts to stack up, because once he starts spamming that shit, you can already see, like, yeah, all the explosions and whatnot. We're not off to a great start. Also, something I probably should have mentioned, the shield restore from Polarize is not instant. It's when, like, Mag brings her hand down that it activates. But Augur set mods are able to do it instantly. Like, when you push the button, it is the moment that you press the button that your shield restore starts. So I have the advantage of I can get the minimum shield gate duration if I hit my 3. Because I'll get that small 7 shields or whatever from the Augur set before the Polarize one kicks in. Alright, go ahead and collect this and get the fuck out of here. I am embarrassed to admit how long I have been workshopping this thing with Mag. Not because I couldn't beat the boss without it, but because I wanted to try and work as much of her kit into the fight as possible. And putting that all together took a while. It's not like her tools aren't, like, obvious, but when you're trying to forego various cheese strategies, it's like, man, I really gotta think about this in a different way, right? Okay, so that is a completed run for Mag. I won't receive her Accolade glyph because I do already have it, so that's why you don't see that there. But like I said, her crowd control and shield restore makes her very good in this fight. I think that she has a very good bag of tools for what this throws at her. So yeah, let me know if this helped you out by leaving a comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one.